Well, top of the evening to you. I'm back from a little break, and I've got a terrific guest to get back into it. You may have not known that I had taken a little bit of a time out, but I spent a little bit of time in Ireland, and I've got some reflections on that. And you may see, you're seeing the show on Tuesday night, May, what is that, 26th? But others of you may see the show on another night because we're not doing a rundown this evening for the express purpose of having an extensive conversation with our guest, who was my first guest on this program, and he needs no introduction other than to show him at work, of course. And this is our Bishop of the Catholic Diocese, Thomas Tobin, who celebrates 10 years in Providence. And that's why we're having him on. He'll be on the radio as well with us later in the week on Thursday. Congratulations on 10 years.
Thanks, Dan. Always nice to be with you, and it is a good milestone to celebrate, I suppose.
What is the date? What is the actual
May 31st.
Date? Oh, it is. Okay.
So the end of May, and this year it's Sunday, so that will be 10 years to the day that it all started.
Time flies when you're having fun?
Yeah, it is. I guess we're having fun because it's passed very, very quickly. And it's just been a wonderful time in my life. It's good for me to take these moments now just to step back a little bit, to reflect upon it all, to pray about it, and to talk to people about it.
Well, no matter where you have been as a bishop, 10 years has brought a lot of stuff for everybody, Catholic Church as well. And you're a terrific public relations person. Help us kind of break down some of the conversation today. I think what we're going to do is take a look at the good stuff, the challenging stuff, and the stuff that comes forward in 3 different segments, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely, yes.
Might as well dig in because there's never enough time with the bishop. But Brian, if we can just put up, Kev, I'm sorry, I don't know. I'm just back. Can we put up the first graphic there? Thank you. Positive developments. Bishop Tobin, 10 years in Providence. Charitable outreach, surviving the economic recession. You'll have to tell me about the awards, development of the Round Catholic as a publication, and ordinations and renovations. So let's go down the list. Charitable outreach is always, an important mission for the church.
Right, and I put that in my own reflections at the top of the list because that obviously is very important. It's great work of the church. It's where we should be. And we're very proud of some of the outreach we've done. Things like our Catholic Charity Appeal, which continues to go very well. Our Keep the Heat On program, which is now finished its 10th year. It's raised over $2 million, and in those 10 years helped, I think, 8,000 households have heating assistance during some of these terrible winters. The Emmanuel House, the emergency shelter for the homeless, has been a great work for us. It's very important, and we're very proud of that work as well. And also supporting our parishes that are involved in food pantries and soup kitchens. We have something like 70 parishes, I believe, that have food pantries or soup kitchens. That our work with immigrants and refugee settlement. Catholic Church in Rhode Island is doing an awful lot of good things that we're very involved in, very committed to, and very proud of.
So when you say you survived the economic recession, how so?
Well, in the sense that obviously we struggled with that as well. That we had to be very, very careful about our expenditures and be very prudent about our stewardship, as we hope we always are. But it affected a lot of our people with obviously the very high unemployment rate. I think affects people in their ability to support the church and other charities. It absolutely affected our enrollment in our Catholic schools because people didn't have the financial resources to pay the tuition. But when I say we survived it, the diocese got through this period pretty well without any major financial crises. We didn't have to do massive layoffs or cutbacks. The ministry of the church continued unabated in our preaching and teaching and serving. So we survived it. I won't say that we prospered. We survived it, and the work of the church continued, despite the real difficult impact it had on so many individuals and so many families.
Tough time.
It was.
And the recovery, to a lot of folks, still doesn't feel like a recovery.
Yeah, I think still a lot of people are suffering, and I suppose some people have left the state and moved out of state, and that impacts the church
Have
too.
you seen the weekly contributions come back to some kind of former levels?
Yes, in fact, that's another good news story, I suppose. In the last year or so, we've done an increased offertory program throughout our state and all the parishes. If it hasn't come to your parish yet, it will soon. And the initial results of that increased offertory program is the offertory collections, the budget collections are up something like 15 to 20%.
Meaning you're asking for more money.
Yes.
Yes.
Because if you don't ask people, they'll pretty much keep their pattern they've done for years. So yeah, we're asking people to, those who can, to do a little bit more on Sundays.
It's always a sensitive subject.
It is.
Yeah.
But you know, we have to be confident in what we're doing and confident in asking people to help us. And our people have been extraordinarily generous, even during the difficult times. Parish collections have done fairly well. Our Catholic Charity Appeal set a new record last year, over $7.9 million. So it's been a struggle. We've had to be very careful, but we're doing okay. We're paying our bills, we're up to date, not near bankruptcy, anything like that.
Do you find discomfort talking about the business of the church?
No, I don't, because no, it's not the only thing I want to talk about, of course. But no, because the business of the church, the administration of the church allows the ministry to take place. You know, if we're raising money, it's not for me. It doesn't affect my salary, but we're giving it to other people. We're helping the church to carry on its mission that we have from Christ, to teach and to serve and to sanctify. So when we ask people for money, when we talk about administration, is to allow the spiritual mission of the church to carry on. And we have a good track record. We're very proud of our stewardship, and we're very accountable and very transparent in all of that.
So talking about the ordinations, that's interesting.
It's been great. Well, you know, every diocese has its special moments, and one of the great moments for our diocese and for me as a bishop has been the ordinations, beginning with the ordination of our new auxiliary bishop just over 5 years ago, Bishop Evans, who's a terrific auxiliary bishop and a longtime classmate. I've known Bishop Evans for 45 years, I think. So that was a very proud moment for our diocese and for me in particular, and he's doing really well, helping us with so many clergy things and personnel, and we're very proud he's on board. In the same time, I've ordained, I believe, over those 10 years, about 20 priests, which is always a joyful moment. We have 3 more ordinations coming up at the end of June. And we had a new class of permanent deacons, 21 new deacons ordained a couple years ago.
Feels like such a small number, doesn't it? Isn't it?
Small number of
ordinations.
Yeah, oh, sure. I wish we had more, and that's one of the things I've listed as our challenges, our disappointments, that we don't have more vocations. The number I've been using in the last 6 years, we've had total loss of 46 priests from the active ministry of the diocese. In the same 6 years, I've ordained only 10. So in 6 years, we've had a net loss of 36 priests from the active ministry of the church. That's a lot in a short time. And that's having an impact.
It requires some tough decisions.
Absolutely, and everybody's feeling the pain, I suppose.
All right, well, let's talk about that when we come back. We'll talk about some of the challenges, and we'll look ahead, too. We'll cover it all in just 25 minutes. Stay with us. Welcome back in. May 31st marks 10 years for Bishop Thomas Tobin here in the state, and he has certainly been a lightning rod. I don't want to talk about you. I'll just talk to you. You have been a lightning rod, no doubt. We'll talk about some of that as we go here. But Kev, throw up that next graphic, if you can, on some of the disappointments that you suggest that you've had to deal with. And obviously on top is the same-sex marriage thing, and the vocations, the priesthood, yeah, it's what everybody that's not a Catholic and doesn't like the church wants to talk about, the sexual abuse allegations and the business of the church. So I don't know how we can get through this thing without racing, but we were talking about the priesthood, so let's stay there for a second.
Sure.
What is the answer? Is there an answer? What is it?
I'm not sure what the answer is, because we've been working very hard to promote vocations. We have 2 priests who are working pretty much full-time on that, and we hope all of our parish priests are encouraging vocations. I've attended and participated in a series of holy hours around the diocese this past year to pray and work hard for vocations. The image I've often used is that we're living in a secular desert where religious values, spiritual values are not always highly prized. And I think that desert in which we're living makes it very hard for a young man to listen to God's voice and to understand and to respond with generosity and love. Same reasons, by the way, I think so many people finding it difficult to enter into the commitment of marriage. It's another parallel topic, I suppose. But it's up to the church to provide a spiritual oasis in the midst of this desert where young men can hear, listen, and respond. It's a great challenge for us. John Paul wrote that beautiful letter about priestly vocations called "I Will Give You Shepherds." And he reminds us that God promises that he will give us shepherds to take care of the church. It's up to us to respond to that. But one of the things he talked about was the phrase he used was the practical and existential atheism of our age. He said, people no longer bother to deny the presence of God. They'll just live without him. And I think that secular culture, that atheistic culture in which we're living, takes its toll on lots of things, including priestly vocations. So we're working hard, but God has to help me on this one, as he has to help me on everything, I suppose.
Young priests, though, you've got my take is that you've got a quality versus quantity thing going to your benefit. The young priests that I've met and or heard about seem to have a unique perspective and commitment, and actually some of them feel a little bit more conservative in their approach, which is ironic. Am I right about that?
I think you're absolutely right. That's certainly been the general take on young priests and vocations. They tend to be a little bit more traditional and conservative than some of the older guys of my age, my generation.
Well, you're thought of as a conservative guy amongst the ranks.
Absolutely.
I mean, parish priests will talk about the bishop and say, "Oh, here he goes again." But fine. That's your shepherd.
Absolutely.
But the younger priests on a political level, religious political level, seem a little more conservative, yet modern in social media, in step. I'm thinking even of my own daughter in a relationship with a couple of young priests. It's very, for lack of a better term, hip, but very
religious.
Yes.
And let me say, first of all, just again, it's very important. We have terrific priests in this diocese. Some of our senior priests are terrific guys who have served the Lord in the church very well for 40 and 50 years or more. And then we have the middle-aged guys who are still out there working very hard and not getting a lot of recognition and credit and affirmation. Great priest. And we have some more younger guys who are also just learning their way into the priesthood now. Terrific young guys. They're smart, they're engaged, they're funny, they're relaxed, they're well prepared. I just need more of them.
Well, there's people watching the show are saying, "Dan, ask the question, ask the question." Let them marry, you'd have a whole bunch more.
I suppose that's probably true statistically, but that's not where the church is right now. We know there was a time in the history of the church where priests were married, probably the first 1,000 years more or less, but for the last 1,000 years that has not been the practice in the Western church. And there are practical reasons for that and spiritual reasons. And I would point out that all of our Protestant brothers and sisters who have married clergy probably aren't doing any better than we are in different ways. So that's not the answer, really. We need to be faithful to our tradition. We have to work hard. And there are many places in the country, many places in the world that have lots of priests. So celibacy is not the problem. And changing celibacy wouldn't be the answer. We just have to work harder and be people of faith to call forward vocation.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned 1,000 years here and 1,000 years there. I feel like we're on the same-sex marriage thing. We are definitely at a historical point. I mean, there are a lot of times when you'll look back on a period of time and recognizing that you're in one is a whole other matter. I just spent a week in Ireland. I was telling you prior to the show that the debate was First Amendment crazy, the signage yes, no on same-sex marriage, and the mass that I attended with my family, typical of a very Rhode Island wonderful parish, First Communion choir, the whole thing. Right on election eve, the priest didn't even step up. He said, "By the way, on this whole referendum thing, the message from the bishop, read it in the bulletin." It almost feels like the fight's gone. Not that that's the way to put it, but look, I'm a practicing Catholic.
Sure.
I have no energy left for it. I don't know whether I ought to be in confession for that, but I don't. You know what I mean? I don't have anything left.
Well, I think we are part of that cultural change you experienced in Ireland, and we've certainly experienced here.
I mean, they're so traditional there to go 60-40 like that.
Right, but the Catholic Church in Ireland has had a tough time in the last 10, 20 years or whatever, with vocations and sexual abuse
Right.
and everything else.
Right.
So they're going through their own dark night,
Okay.
their own cultural crisis. There's no question there's a change taking place in the Western world about marriage, same-sex marriage, and other questions, I suppose. That doesn't make it good. It doesn't make it right. And I think the role of the church is to profess, proclaim, and teach what we believe to be true, that marriage comes from God between a man and a woman. Anything else is a moral aberration, and it's the prophetic role of the church to teach that. Right or wrong, win or lose, we have to teach what we believe is the truth. Will we win every battle? Of course not. But that's where the church is, and I think we have the truth on marriage. We, at great risk of our own soul and our own society, we change what God has defined. God has given us marriage as a union of a man and a woman for life and for love. We start to tinker with that, you can be sure there will be consequences down the road.
Even Pope Francis wants to take a breath on it, though. If I can feel like I don't think his argument is any less articulate than yours. Yet he's not throwing it up as today's conversation.
No, and neither have we. I mean, we've dealt with all sorts of issues here in Rhode Island. Same-sex marriage was certainly one of them.
Right.
We've dealt with pro-life questions about abortion. We've been way up front on immigration questions, on questions of homelessness and refugee settlement, and lots of other issues. So it's not the only thing we have spoken about, but it was certainly the great moral battle in the last 10 years of my time.
On the business side, parishes, schools, consolidation, closings, that's when you're the bad guy, right? Historically,
I'm
every
probably the
bishop
bad guy
has always been.
a lot of times, but that's hard. It's really hard, but it's inevitable. We've done a little bit of that. We've closed a handful of parishes over the years. More often than not, we've been able to link some parishes, and this puts another burden on our priests, because we've had many cases now where one priest is taking care of 2 or 3 smaller parishes. And people will see the changes in their Sunday Mass schedule. I've asked every parish in the diocese to examine their Sunday Mass schedule and to try to eliminate any Masses that aren't absolutely necessary. And some of our parishes are doing that now. We can't have a church where we have 3 Masses with 400 people when the church seats 1,000. They could easily come together for
It's kind of like the airlines, man. You gotta run full flights.
Yeah, but we're not
right?
overbooked. We have lots of room for people, and that's the importance of evangelization too. So we have to be very careful and perhaps smart about the use of our resources, our buildings, our personnel, the liturgies. That's really important if we're going to be able to carry on the essential work of the church.
Right.
But it's not easy.
Well, so we'll talk about going forward, because there's got to be good news. Stay with us. With Bishop Thomas Tobin celebrating his 10th anniversary, May 31st. It's a time flies when you're having fun type of thing. Are you tired? You don't look any worse for the wear.
Thank you. Well, I get tired sometimes, but I'm very, very happy here. I love the work I'm doing. I'm working hard. I'm working as hard as I can. I'm doing my best. And one of the things that gives me some comfort is I can say that to myself. I'm doing my very best, working hard. Probably haven't made all the right decisions or right movements, but at night when I go to bed, I say, Lord, I've worked hard today. I've done my best, and everything else is in your hands. And that sense of trust really has grown. I think that sense of my own limitations. I can't do everything. I can't solve every problem. I can't meet every need, but I'm doing my best. And I have the help of so many people, of course, and we have a great diocesan staff. The priest here, the deacons, the religious, the laity, they've been wonderful. They've been welcoming. Even when we battle a little bit, they've been kind. So I have a lot of people to help me.
You've made your mark. Every bishop's got their own style, their own way of doing business. Even your peers who are current bishops, there are plenty who are a lot less vocal, articulate on the issues as you are. You've decided to take a kind of a modern role and be part of the public dialogue. You know, as an observer, but also as a Catholic, I'd say there's a whole lot more pluses than minuses. I mean, you and I've had some friendly disagreements on the politics of the church and some approaches, not unlike other newsmakers. But I think you've modernized being a bishop. If you don't get in the game, no one's going to hear you, right? Isn't that been kind of your philosophy?
Absolutely. I mean,
Jesus didn't shy away.
No, not at all. And certainly Pope Francis is not
Right.
shying away either. The church has to be involved. The church has to be engaged. And I've tried to do that in two ways. By the charitable outreach of the church, being sure we're present and responding to the needs of the community to the best of our limited resources, but also being part of the public debate. I think the church and the bishop has the duty and the right to speak out on these issues. I believe very strongly in the prophetic role of the church to bring the Word of God to bear on issues of the day, whether it's abortion, same-sex marriage, immigration, homelessness, whatever it might be. I strongly believe that the church has that prophetic role, and perhaps times in the past we haven't been as strong or as clear as we should be.
Well, also in the knee-jerk reaction, and I say it's knee-jerk, and you'll be insulted by that, some of you, but that's too bad. Separation of church and state. Separation of church and state. And on the radio, when you come on Thursday at 2 o'clock on WPRO, we'll talk a little bit more about this because separation of church and state doesn't mean that the church has got to shut up.
No, but people
Right.
want the church to shut up when we're not on their side.
Right.
So the same people who don't want me to speak out about abortion do want me to speak out about the environment. They want me to speak out about immigration, but not same-sex marriage. So all depends what side you're on.
I'm not going to do best and worst for your own. Tell me, in 10 years, what's been the one moment where you said, "This is great. It's great to run this shop."
There have been so many great liturgical moments. We're at the cathedral, we're in a parish filled with people who are singing and praying. When the bishop walks into the church, either in his own cathedral or in a great parish church that's filled with active people, you feel like a bishop. People are singing, they're praying, you preside, you lead them, and you can say, you know what, things are going pretty well here. We don't always see that. People say the church is dying, and I know the numbers are down, but you walk into some of our very active parishes, it's wonderful. Or into a cathedral on ordination day or for the Chrism Mass or on Easter Sunday morning. It's wonderful, and it's the best time to be a bishop.
So you still got a skip in your step?
I do.
Still doing
It might
God's
be
work.
slowing down a little bit, but I have 8 years before I can think about retirement, so I think I'm good for 8 years.
All right. Well, keep creating the dialogue, and of course, you won't be a stranger. First guest ever on the TV show. There'll be many more, I hope.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Always happy to be here.
Congratulations on 10 years.
Thank you,
It's
Dan.
been a pleasure.
Appreciate
Bishop
it.
Thomas Tobin. One more thing when we come back. Bishop Tobin is terrific. He's brought a lot of dynamic conversation and spiritual leadership to this community, whether you're Catholic or not. Hey, listen, on one more thing, I wanted to offer condolences to the family of Jim Skeffington, who, while I was away, passed away, the new president of the Paw Sox, who we had only a few weeks ago here talking about the deal. There'll be time, I hope, for mourning there, but I will tell you that the business of that controversy continues. Mayor Grebian from Pawtucket sent a letter to Larry Lucchino, who remains the principal owner, asking for the data on a $65 million nut assessed to the renovation of McCoy Stadium, something that Mr. Skeffington was not happy about speaking about. We're going to have to celebrate the humanity of his loss and the business of that dialogue, and hopefully we do it deftly here. But again, my condolences to everyone who knew and loved Jim Skeffington. Made a lot of contributions to this community. See you on the radio tomorrow at noon. Bye.